Hello, biologists. Welcome to week 2 of Lightning Biology Continuous Required Learning. First off, I hope that everyone is doing well, staying safe, staying healthy, and finding positives to every day. I appreciate all of the hard work that you put in last week. I was super impressed with all of the material I've gotten in. Please make sure that if you have any questions along the way that you do reach out to me. Again, my office hours are Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. However, please reach out to me anytime, and it won't take very long for me to get back to you. This week, we are going to continue on with heredity, genetics. However, unlike last week where we talked about Mendelian genetics and complete dominance, this week we're going to go beyond what Mendel originally found, and we're going to look at a couple patterns of inheritance that are beyond the complete dominance. If you take a look at the document that is included in the email, please make sure you actually go through these documents. I've worked pretty hard to get these put together to give you all of the information that you need. I know some of you last week, you jumped in, you saw what you needed to do, and you tried to go through it very quickly. When it came to the quizzes, that didn't always work out so great for you, and so please make sure, I want to make this meaningful learning. I don't want to overwhelm anyone, but it will be really helpful and valuable for your understanding of the material if you spend a little bit of time going through some of this. And so I've given you, again, the learning goals, so students will be able to, number 1, recognize and describe the following intermediate patterns of inheritance. So these are not going to be just dominant and recessive. We're going to talk about codominance, and I give you a little scenario. It's kind of like taking the black cow and the white cow, and you get both of those traits are dominant. They're codominant, so you get a spotted cow. Blood type is also an example of codominance. An A blood type and a B blood type, they're equally dominant, and so they actually can result in a AB blood type. The second type of inheritance that you're going to look at is incomplete dominance. Incomplete dominance is where they blend together. And so they're incompletely dominant over each other. So for example, you have a red flower and a white flower. Those two cross, you're actually going to get an intermediate or a blend, and it's going to be a pink flower. And then the last pattern of inheritance we're going to look at this week are sex-linked. Those genes that are actually carried on the X or the Y chromosome. And so that gets passed on, inherited a little different because it affects males and females differently. The second thing that you also will need to know as one of your goals, students will be able to interpret phenotype pedigrees. So we're going to actually look at pedigrees. Here's 4 examples, very simple examples of pedigrees. And you need to be able to identify the genotypes of the individuals. So if I asked you what is the genotype of the male, which is a square in this autosomal recessive, you would need to be able to deduce based on what the information is, what their genotype is, because a pedigree is the phenotypes. And then the last thing that you need to be able to do is use the vocabulary terms that I have given you. So patterns of inheritance, incomplete dominance, codominance, multiple alleles, sex-linked, and pedigree, and be able to use those in conversation, be able to understand what those are and use them. There is an optional extension. This is not included in the grade, and I actually don't have a bonus built in this week. But the optional extension has to do with those traits that are polygenic. If you remember, poly is many, genic is genes, so many genes working together. For example, our skin color is polygenic. We don't have just black-white, we have many, many shades in between, and that means, or that makes it a polygenic trait. Our height is also polygenic. And so once you go beyond this, you start to see in the gray boxes here, I have provided you with a variety of background resources. So let's say you are working through and you just don't really understand pedigrees. Maybe you want to watch this pedigree amoeba sister video, or maybe solving pedigree genetic problems. You can click on the video and watch that as extra. The items in the blue box, those are the interactive learning activities. All 5 of these videos, they're a little bit shorter, well, anywhere from 15 minutes down to 5 minutes. But these videos kind of break each of those key points down. The Beyond Mendelian Genetics, that is one I found online. But the incomplete dominance, codominance, sex-linked, and pedigrees, those are all videos that I actually created as if I was teaching in front of the classroom. And so these 5 videos are all required. And in a total, just by watching them and answering the questions, and watch them all the way through. Some of you watched them partially, and then maybe you answered the last question and you shut it off. This week, make sure that you watch them all the way through, because if you watch 100% of the video and answer the questions, you're going to get full credit for that. And this is going to be 30 of the 50 points are going to come from this week. Some practice work. I really encourage you guys to do this. My inclination, based on watching last week, is that some of you maybe skipped over the practice of the problems. These problems are kind of like math problems. You can read about it, you can watch a video on it, you can learn about it, but if you don't practice the problems, when it comes time to take the quiz, it might not go as well as you would like it to. And so there's a Quizlet with a vocabulary guide that you can fill out again. And then there's Beyond Mendel practice, so codominant and incomplete, and I gave you a key, and then X-linked, and then also some pedigree practice. I really encourage you to do that before you take the quiz. And then finally, before next Thursday, because all of this is due on a week from Thursday, is the Heredity Beyond Mendel quiz, and that's going to be worth 20 points, 20 of the 50 points. So how would I do this if I were you? This is kind of how I would start. Everything in yellow is required. So everything in yellow needs to be done in order to earn points. It will go into the grade book. If you happen to be missing one of these things, next Thursday then it will go in as a 0. And so you want to make sure that you are doing all of these things, especially the videos. I would suggest starting off with the vocab, learn the words a little bit, and then go ahead and jump into those ed puzzles, do the Beyond Mendelian Genetics, because it's an overview of everything, and then work through the codominant and incomplete dominant. At that same time, I also would, if you have a printer, you could print it off or just have it open and work your problems on scratch paper. But I would complete page 1 of the Beyond Mendel practice questions. These questions would go along with the codominant and incomplete dominant explanation. And then I would move on to the sex-linked and then complete page 2 of that Beyond Mendel practice. That's how I would do it. You could watch the videos and then do the practice, or vice versa. But the videos will help you understand how to do the questions. And then finally, I would watch the ed puzzle or the instruction on pedigrees. I also encourage you, this one I'm not super thrilled about, maybe because I was making it late at night, but I would also encourage you to view one or more of the resources. If you go back up here, see this is Learning Goal 2, understanding the components of a pedigree, solving pedigree. I would probably go to one of those two just to make sure that you feel confident with pedigrees. They're easy, but they do take a little bit because they're universal. There's some pedigree practice. I highly encourage you to look at that. You might even see some of those pedigrees later on, or at least pedigrees that are like that, because I do have some pedigree problems on the Beyond Mendel quiz. And then you take the quiz and you are good. If you want to do the extension activities, there's a little bit of background overview video. I would only watch from 3:09 to 7:47. You do not have to watch the whole thing. You can if you're interested. There's a Bio Ninja polygenic traits little tutorial. And then my favorite is this How Do Genes Determine Skin Color? And it walks you through some questions, asks you some different questions on how to work with polygenic traits. And then it goes through and it explains. And it shows some pretty cool things, kind of like the idea of why when you roll 2 dice, why do you typically, or why are you going to end up with a sum of 7 way more often than you're going to end up with a sum of 2 or 12? It kind of goes through that. Same idea with polygenic traits. So you're going to work through that. Please make sure that you reach out to me on Remind if you have any questions, or email me if you have any questions. If you have any concerns about what we did this week, or maybe you didn't get something done, you still can do that. Nothing will be late. However, I really encourage you to meet the deadlines of Thursday to Thursday just to stay on track, because that final Thursday, it will be a deadline. In the grade book, in Power School, I have put your grades in there. Anything that I do not have, I put it in as missing. A missing does not affect your grade at that time. What a missing does is it allows, or it tells you that I don't have that thing, and so it allows you to follow up on it to make sure that you get that complete. Eventually, after Thursday, those missing will get turned into zeros, so you know where your grade is, because those of you who are doing this, you are still going for a letter grade. If your grade happens to fall under 60%, I will put a P in the grade until you can get the grade back up above 50 or above 60%. Remember that if you score very poorly on a quiz, on one of the big quizzes, please reach out to me. We can talk about it. We can look at options to maybe help you gain better understanding and help change that outcome. If you have any questions, please ask. Please make sure you are engaging in the learning process, not just rushing through to get it done, but actually enjoying this. This material, although you might not think it plays a role, if you plan on having children someday, genetics are going to be pretty interesting to you. Good luck this week. Miss you guys, and take care.